What is going on, guys? JJ Wilson is here, and for today, or at least on this day, March 19th, 2022, we're going to do an anime review. Haven't done one of these in a long time. Well, it's been a couple months, but no, it hasn't been a couple months. It's been more like 2 months, because I think I did the Gungrave anime review back in January, so it hasn't been that long. But yeah, it has been a minute. So yes, welcome back to the anime review part of my channel. And so for this anime, I'm going to talk about Platinum End. What are my thoughts on Platinum End, man? This anime was, I think compared to last year, it seemed like it was going to be something really good, especially when we all found out that this was a show made by the same authors of Death Note. And we remember how classic of a show that was. It's been a long time since I watched Death Note, but I remember how good that show was, and then kind of find out that there was an anime coming out with the same writers as this one. I was like, oh snap, this is gonna be epic, right? This is gonna be the shiznit, just like how Death Note was. Oh no. Oh no. That could be further from the truth. Everybody listening, this show was bad. I mean, like utterly bad. That's how messed up and that's how crappy the overall season was for me. So basically, Platinum End, you can divide the anime portion into two sections. Basically, the first season, the first half of the season, and season 2, which would be the second half. So basically, season 1 involves the antagonist Metropolitan. I hope I said that right. Metropolitan. Yeah, or his real name was Kanade, right? So that was the first one. The second one, the main antagonist, involves Yoneda, Professor Yoneda, who is a Nobel Peace Prize winner. Yeah, guy's a genius. So yeah, let me quickly talk about season 1. So season 1 overall, I have no idea what that was about. Like, apparently, in a way, this kind of reminded me of the Finna anime. If anybody saw that on Toonami, it was like a pirate show. I could have did a review on it, but I decided not to because it was once again, that anime was an utter disappointment too. But basically, with season 1, the antagonist Kanade or Metropolitan, he reminded me of Abel from the Princess of Fana. How those guys are they had real incel like behaviors and tendencies because both of these guys lost loved ones that they cherished. So with Metropolitan's case, he had a little sister, and she ended up dying because by accident, she fell off. I think it was a gazebo or like a tall pier or whatever. She fell off and she hit her head on the concrete by accident, and she ended up dying. And Kanade, with his genius, he was able to kind of keep her body in a cryogenic state. So technically she's still dead, but because he got founded with one of the god candidates, who his angel is called Mesa. Okay, so let me touch on the candidates right quick. So there were 13 god candidates, right? And funny enough, they were all chosen in Japan. And thanks to the protagonist's angel named Nase. Oh, and the protagonist, by the way, his name is Mirai Kakahashi. So Kakahashi's angel Nase says that the reason why all the god candidates were chosen in Japan was because of the high suicide rate. And suicide's a pretty big theme here in this anime. And I'm gonna get to that later. But going back to Metropolitan, this guy was so obsessed to get his girl back, his sister back to life, to where because of his god candidate, like, she wanted him to, he had the desire to like become a god by any means necessary. I think out of all the candidates, he was the one that really, really wanted to become God, right? He wanted to be the next successor to God. And for those that don't know, yeah, God, also known as the creature, he wants to basically, because his power is fading, and Yoneda explains it a little bit later, I'm gonna get to that. But basically, because his powers are fading, he has to find a new successor in order to sustain his existence, basically. So that's why the whole god selection process is going on in this anime, pretty much. But yeah, man, I mean, Metropolitan, this guy was so twisted to where he wanted to get his sister back that he was willing to kill anybody, whether human or god, to achieve that goal. And thankfully, thanks to Kakahashi as well as his girlfriend, who was also a god candidate, her name is Saki. Thanks to their efforts, they were able to thwart off any plan that Metropolitan had. And of course, the protagonist, Kakahashi, he had his eventual battle against Metropolitan, and of course, the protagonist ended up winning. I won't say how he won. You just need to watch the show if you want to. You can check it out for yourself. But let me touch on Kakahashi for a second. So the reason why the protagonist, he was chosen as a god candidate is because, like many of the other candidates, he thought about killing himself, suicide again. And he was saved by his angel Nase, who at the time was just I think she was a first rank, or a special rank actually. There's like different ranks with the angels. I don't fully understand what all they can do, but you got second rank angels, first rank angels, and then you got the special ranks, which can do all kinds of stuff. And of course, they give them these powers such as wings, the god candidate's wings, arrows, and there's two colors, red and white. The red makes somebody fall in love with you, or they just like you enough to do everything that you tell them to do. And the white arrow is basically you can just kill them. The white arrow just is deadly. I'll just put it that way. But yeah, Kakahashi, because he grew up with an abusive aunt and uncle, and then come to find out he lost his real parents in a car accident, along with his younger sibling. And, he just felt like crap most of his life. So he's just like, one night, I'm just going to jump off this building. I'm just going to kill myself. And then, next thing you know, he gets saved by Nase. And then Nase tells him about the god selection process and what does he think about becoming a god. Although throughout the whole entire show, he doesn't care about being a god, really. Like, he just didn't have it in him to do it. On multiple occasions, like, it was so annoying. Like, I was like, okay, this angel goes out of her way to save you, and this whole time you're just being so humble about it. Like, okay, yeah, I don't really want to be God. I just want to be happy. I just want to live life. I don't want to have that responsibility of being in control of the entire universe, let alone planet Earth. That's just basically his whole stance. I love Saki so much. She's the world to me, even though she doesn't always reciprocate those feelings back to me. But over time, it does happen. But damn. Anyway, it was such a tease, man. And of course, there were some other characters, too, that was completely dumb. Like this, I wrote his name down, Toma Rodriguez, who was a complete womanizer. Thankfully, he got killed off by Metropolitan. And then, probably my favorite god candidate out of this whole show was probably Makaido. And he had a family. He was very much a family guy. He had a wife. He had a daughter, and he was about to have another child. But of course, he doesn't get to see the child because he does end up dying prematurely. And he was already suffering through a disease with cancer. And because life was so hard for him, he thought about killing himself too before his angel saved him, Barrett. I mean, so... And you're going to find out, like, some god candidates, they don't have all of the perks that comes with a god candidate. Like with Kakahashi, for instance, he didn't get the white arrow until he got rid of Metropolitan. He didn't get those abilities until he had that showdown with Metropolitan. And Makaido, he never got a white arrow, I don't think. To my knowledge, I don't think he ever got one. I could be wrong about that. He just had the red arrow and the wings. And in Saki's case, she never had wings because her angel was a second rank. She didn't get the wings until her angel called Revel. He obtained enough knowledge to move up in rank. And I forget exactly what was his title. I think he was called the Angel of Emotion or something like that. I'm not sure. I might have it mixed up. All these angels have all these different titles and stuff, and it's kind of hard to keep up with. So, but basically, Saki, she ends up getting the red arrow thanks to her angel, moving up in rank and stuff. And so, yeah, Makaido, man, he was kind of like the guy, the older guy out of the god candidates that kind of was more level-headed, and he could kind of analyze what was happening, and he could come up with a forward plan and things of that nature. At first, he wasn't very trustful of Red and Yellow, the nicknames of Kakahashi and Saki, because of their eventual uniforms and stuff that they get. And that was inspired by Makaido anyway, because he was a fashion designer. That was his job. And so he designed not only his outfit, he designed the outfits of Kakahashi and Saki. I'm glad I remember that. So yeah, thanks to him, they got their new identities and stuff. So once they got to know more about Makaido, they started respecting him a lot more because he was a family guy. He was about, living life as best as he could, and stuff like that. So his death, once he died, not just from cancer, really, it was because he tried to help out Kakahashi fight Metropolitan, but he was too sick to do so, and so eventually he dies. And that was probably the most unfortunate part of the whole show, just to watch him go down. Because he's, like I say, he's one of the more normal, he was one of the more normal, level-headed characters in the whole show, basically. And then they had another guy, Metropolitan. He had a couple of henchmen. Like, the main one he had was Hajime. And Hajime, he was a god candidate, but his whole stick was he was so ugly that, he got tired of being teased for his ugliness and he wanted to kill himself. And then, funny enough, next thing you know, his angel Balta, he gives him the inspiration to keep living. To where, hey, if you become a god, not only will you get nothing but girls flocking to you, you'll become the most handsome man ever. I mean, the way his features looked was just ridiculous, man. He had pink hair. He had these weird looking eyes. Because, his face before was so damn... man, it was just yucky looking. But even his other face was yucky looking, but he was supposed to be way hotter. And when he used his red arrow, he made girls fall in love with him and stuff. It was just weird. The whole character was dumb. Hajime was just a stupid character, all out. Okay? But man, okay, so that was the first half of the season. Let me get into the second half. I'll have to admit, the second half, I personally like better than the first half. The first half was just this wannabe Saiyaman dude trying to become God, basically. He was that obsessed. The second one was a little more interesting, I have to say. Because we had some new guys come in. We had some new god candidates. First of all, we had this kid named Susumu. I hope I got his name right. Yeah, Susumu. With his angel Penema. And so Susumu, funny enough, like... At first he wanted to be a god candidate, but then he changed his mind once he saw Kakahashi fight Metropolitan. The kid was all over the place. Like, he was a fan of Kakahashi and he was a fan of Metropolitan. But then when he saw those two duke it out, then with the conclusion of Kakahashi winning, he was like, oh, I'm a fan of Red. I like Kakahashi. I want him to be the next god. Right? And then thanks to this kid, he pretty much snitched on all the god candidates throughout the whole world, because the news was starting to catch on about the angel's existence as well as the god candidate existence, right? They were catching on. And then, thanks to the kid, when he was being interviewed by one of the news reporters, because he up and decided to talk about Kakahashi and Saki, he pretty much tells him everything there is to know about the god candidates. I'm like, this boy here. Oh, man. But then the dude gets killed. I'm not going to tell you how he gets killed, but he gets killed so stupid. He gets killed so dumb. As fast as this boy was, and as knowledgeable as he was about the god candidate process, the little boy ends up dying. I'm not going to tell you how he dies. And then there's this chick named Yuri. This is another girl. This is another one of these god candidates that didn't want to become god either. And she was just kind of all over the place. Like, she's like, okay, I just want to keep my popularity, because that's all she cared about. She just cared about being liked by people. She's like one of these girls that stays on her phone a lot, trying to keep up appearances, because she was this attractive girl, but she was still single. And she was very wishy-washy about who she wanted to date and stuff. And so because of that, like, her mind frame was like, okay, whoever wants to become the guy, I'm just going to follow that guy, because that way, if he could just fulfill my promises of staying popular and staying attractive and staying pretty much young forever, then that's all she cares about. I mean, she has her moments. She definitely has her moments in the show, as far as like helping out the team and whatever, but she's still very much a minor player in all things. So that's Yuri. That's her. Now, the last two guys I want to get into. Let me go ahead and talk about Professor Yoneda, who's the antagonist of the second part of Platinum Men. Professor Yoneda, is a very, very shrewd, very calculating individual, because even though he had all the success of being so smart and being a genius to where he became a Nobel Peace Prize winner, basically, for solving all sorts of issues, especially when it came to science. But because of that, he was a recluse. The guy avoided human confrontation at all costs. Even his there's actually two humans in the show that work for the FBI. I think the guy's name was Hoshi. I might have his name wrong, but the dude with the glasses, basically. So he went to high school with this guy, and he was kind of talking to him along with Kakahashi when they finally started confronting one another. And so he kind of realized that, yeah, for President Yoneda, as smart as this guy was, he didn't want to be bothered by people. And because of that, he couldn't relate to people's emotions. He couldn't understand how people felt, especially that they wanted to kill themselves. And that talks about suicide. There was a whole episode based on suicide, because this is where the next character comes in. And this guy, or this young man rather, he helps out Yoneda in trying to fulfill his plans of getting rid of God altogether. That was Yoneda's grand, big scheme. He wanted to get rid of the existence of God by any means necessary, because thanks to his angel, Yoneda's angel is called Mooney. And because of Mooney, he figures out that God's power is disappearing. He's going to disappear because as time went on, more and more people throughout Earth stopped believing in God, basically. That's kind of what it was. So once Yoneda figured that out, he wanted to get all the Godkans to come together, and they need to have a big important discussion about who was going to be the next God. And Yoneda wanted to test their resolve, each of their resolve, as to whether or not they really was going to go through with becoming a successor. Although his real plan was, as cynical as he was, he wanted to get rid of God completely. He wanted to get rid of the creature, and eventually probably get rid of mankind as well, because I guess he just felt like they were a failed species. Like, that's how twisted this guy was. But by the end of the show, he gets this young guy. His name was Shuji Nakami. So Nakami, he was this young dude. Let me talk about him for a second. He wanted to kill himself, and there was a whole episode pretty much dedicated to him about one to take his life. And he got into this debate with Kakahashi and Kanade's friend, who I forget his name, about why we should just let people decide on when they can die. We should let suicide be more okay. Right? Because he was saying how let me think. He was saying he wanted to, if he became God, he would allow people to kill themselves without reckless abandon. He was just gonna let it happen. And if they had a hard time doing that, that's when he would step in and he would assist their deaths, basically. So he wanted to create a world where suicide was more normalized, and people that felt like they had no hope in this world, they could take the easy way out, basically. Right? I mean, it goes so much deeper than that, man. I mean, that whole episode, I forget what the number is. It just went on a tangent about suicide. It was crazy. But yeah, so this kid, because, he started taking orders from Yoneda because he was a fan of Yoneda's work. He read a lot of his books and stuff about humanity and how they thought. But then, his conflict of taking life, because despite him wanting to kill himself, as he said many times, Nakami, he couldn't, there was a point where Yoneda told him to capture the other guy cannons while he talked to Kakahashi, because he wanted to see if Kakahashi was really going to go through with becoming the next god. And when that didn't work, Nakami was ordered to kill the remaining god candidates, including Saki. But it didn't happen because the boy had a change of heart about taking life, especially from people that wanted to live. They didn't want to die, but they wanted to live. So he couldn't go through with it. And then by the end of all that, because he couldn't kill the girls ended up going back to where Kakahashi was, because he almost got killed by Yoneda with his crazy plan of trying to get rid of God altogether. And then they've had another crazy conversation, and then all of a sudden they decide to let Nakami become God. They let this dude become God. It wasn't Kakahashi after all. There's a spoiler. Boom. There's the number one spoiler in the second half of the season right there. You can thank me for that. Okay? So I'm looking at the last episode. There's supposed to be one more episode after this. I'm looking at this. It's like after all that Kakahashi had to deal with not just Metropolitan, but now Kaneda. Sorry, not Kaneda. Yoneda. Sorry. With Professor Yoneda, he had to deal with his crap. He just up and decided, well, I'm not gonna become God after all. I just agreed we'll let this dude here become God because he ended up not killing Saki, Kakahashi's lover. He ended up not killing her. And then the weird part was Nase, because in the last episode, episode 23, because Kakahashi was supposed to die, she ended up saving his life to where she ended up getting demoted from her special rank. She went down to the second rank, and then she saves the professor to become a special rank again, which was the most weirdest, unexplainable part of the entire show to me. That moment with Nase, right? Because at some point in the show, Nase said angels weren't supposed to save their god candidates from dying, whether they got killed by a god candidate or a human being. Like, they weren't allowed to save their god candidates. Okay, but because she did that twice, not just for Kakahashi, but she did it. Well, actually, she did it both for Kakahashi. I'm sorry, because she wanted to see Kakahashi happy at the end of the day. She did not want to see Kakahashi sad, even if he became God. That's kind of how her mind frame was. It was just one of the weirdest things ever. So overall, the show was just all over the place, man. It did not have the same suspense like a Death Note. If I had to compare it to, it just wasn't there on that level at all. Honestly, it just wasn't. But yeah, sorry for the review to drag on like that. I know some people probably didn't watch this show. I just kind of wanted to give my intake on there about the anime in general. Yeah, I feel like it was just overhyped when it first came out, and then just to see the episodes, it just left me scratching my head. And a lot of the characters just looked so ridiculous. Yoneda in particular, the professor, he looked like shout out to one of my subscribers, Azrael. He looked like Kenpachi from Bleach. Like, it looked like a ripoff from Bleach. And then of course the other guy, Metropolitan, he's a ripoff of Saiyan Man. I'm just throwing it out there. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Platinum Man. Just a crappy show altogether, man. I don't know what to say about it. I think there's one more show, one more episode. I guess I'll see it. And if there's any resolution after the last episode, I'll let you guys know. But other than that, that's going to be all from here. I'm JJ Wilson. You tell me what you think about the show if you saw it. What are your thoughts? What do you agree? What do you disagree with? And we will reconvene next time. See you later.